Hi, my name's Anna Georgia, and this is the story of two women that I know and love. The first woman had it pretty tough. She started experiencing depression from age 12 and psychotic episodes during her teenage years. She just couldn't cope at school, so she left early and was then fired from several menial jobs when employers discovered she had mental illness. She was married at 19 and gave birth to 3 children, but one was stillborn. She was hospitalised on many occasions for physical and mental illness, but she wasn't correctly diagnosed until age 37. Her family lived below the poverty line due to her inability to work and the need for her husband to care for her. But through her illness, she got to know a woman who seemed to really understand the situation. But she had 2 university degrees, was the CEO of her own company, and had worked as a director of a mental health service. She was happily married, owned her own home, and had 2 beautiful daughters and a grandson. Now, how different are these 2 people's lives? But they're the same person. Meet my mum.
1 in 5 people have mental illness. 1 in 5 people have blonde hair. 1 in 5 people have blue eyes. And that's considered normal. So it's normal to have mental illness. It's just a different kind of normal. What does a normal gum tree look like? I'm not a disease. I'm not a manic depressive. I'm Fay and I have bipolar disorder.
Mental illness is a physical illness, okay? It's just like something like diabetes where you have a chemical imbalance. If you have diabetes, what don't you produce? Insulin, absolutely. You don't produce insulin from the pancreas, and so it gives you a physical illness. With mental illness, they think that the scientists believe that we're not producing enough serotonin, adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, those kind of feel-good chemicals.
So, Mum, what do you think's been the hardest part of your having mental illness?
Well, the years of depression and feeling suicidal, and the anxiety, and my loss of self-confidence, and being poor too, because your dad had to take care of me and I couldn't work. But by far the hardest part was when you reached teenage years and you got ill with mental illness, and I knew that I'd given it to you, of my blood and of my upbringing. That was definitely the hardest.
It's alright, Mum.
For the treatment and management of my life, I always take my medication. I never take drugs. I make sure I have a good diet and have plenty of sleep. I drink lots of water and get regular exercise. I always practice my cognitive behavioural therapy, which teaches me to think realistically, and I do things to help other people, and that helps me.
To ask me if I resent having mental illness, that's like asking me if I resent being me, because as you know, my bipolar is such an integral part of me, you know, and it's given me so much. It's given me my creativity, it's given me my work, it's given me compassion and understanding, and it's given me a sense of humour, because once you've been down in that gutter where depression can take you, and you've been able to be liberated from that, then you have a really different way of looking at life, you know, and you see the good things in things and the funny side of things. Like I remember this time I flew into Griffith Airport to be driven by this poor unsuspecting fellow out to the Hay Plains, you know, and he threw my bags into the back of his brand new white 4-wheel drive, and it was coming on dark as we left the civilization of Griffith behind, and he said to me, "Fay, what is your position at the conference?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, Keith, I'm the nutter. I'm here to speak about having mental illness. And he's freaked, and he's wedged himself against the door, and he's driving like this, his eyes are bugged out, and by the time we've got out to the hay plains, there's nothing else out there. There's just him and me, and there's roadkill to the left and roadkill to the right of us. And we'd been having this normal conversation that Keith was pretty surprised about, me having mental illness and all, didn't expect that would happen. And we'd been going for some time, and then he turned to me and he said in a typically stigmatising way, "Well, Faye, I don't understand. I mean, just how sick are you? You seem quite normal to me." And I just couldn't help myself, because of that. I've heard things like that time and again, and I said to him, "Well, Keith, it's like this. You see, I'm quite normal, really," but I explained about the chemical imbalances of the brain. And I said, "But if somebody says the word kangaroo," and I paused just long enough to say the word kangaroo, and he's gone, "Kangaroo?" And I've gone, "Keith! Keith! It's Beelzebub, Keith! Take me to Adelaide!" And he's freaked. He's pulled the car up and he's out. He's gone out into the darkness. He'd rather be out there in the dark with the roadkill than be in the car with me. This crazy woman that's going off. And it took me some time to convince the poor bloke that he can get back into the car, that it's just a joke, And finally he comes back shivering and shaking with fear, Poor bugger. But, I just couldn't help myself. And you've got to learn to laugh at yourself, And another time I remember I was sent up north to speak at a conference up there, and I was flying back from a very small airport, and this little girl who has to fly fortnightly down to Sydney to see her dad was flying by and was really afraid. She hated flying, and her grandmother was telling me about this. And I said, "Well, she can come with me if she likes." And the little one thought that was a really good idea. So we flew together on the plane, and just as the plane started to rev up, she was really frightened and crying and shaking, And I said, "Oh, Maddie, this is fantastic. I love to fly, This is the best part. Do you know why? Because you can pretend you're a bird. What's your favourite bird?" And she goes, "Cockatoo." "Oh, Maddie, I love flying. I love to fly. Here we go. We're going up. Oh, feel that. Oh, I love it. I love it. Look at that. That's Mr. Smith's shed there. Oh, I love that shed. My favourite shed. And that's my favourite river. And there's Mrs. Smith's washing on the line. Oh, I love that. I pooped on her washing yesterday. I did." And she's cracking up laughing, and these two businessmen that are seated beside us are sort of laughing but nervously, And then she goes, "Magpie." And I go, "Magpie? Oh, Maggie, we could fly all the way to Sydney. Be a magpie with me, Maddie." She's just laughing, So we flew all the way to Sydney with me being a cockatoo and a magpie, and everybody else is laughing. And I rang her the next week, to see how she was, how she got on over the weekend. And I said, "Did you have news at school today, Maddie?" And she said, "Yes, I did." And I said, "Did you tell them you went to the zoo with Dad?" And she said, "No." And I said, "What did you tell them?" She said, "I told them I flew to Sydney with a mad woman who thinks she's a magpie." But when you've been psychotic like I have, and you think you've been, a lot worse things than magpies, and you kind of lose your inhibitions and you learn to enjoy life and, just laugh at yourself. Yeah. No, I don't resent being me. I don't resent it.
And it'll never be too much.
Through my mum's genes, I've inherited mental illness, but through her eyes, I've learned pride and acceptance for myself, compassion for others, and hope for the future.
See, you're not like anyone else I know. You shine like